What is the right to vote? The right to vote is the recognition of a person's power of judgment and decision-making in state affairs. How is it possible to recognize this power of judgment in someone who actually does not possess it? He doesn't have it, but we will pretend as if he does. This person doesn't understand what the state, law, freedom, justice, honor, conscience, homeland, faith, spirit, and culture are. But we will pretend as if he comprehends all of this and as if his judgment carries weight and meaning. Such pretense is impossible anywhere, not in technology, not in craftsmanship, not in medicine, not in agriculture. As in all these fields, such actions would lead to punishment. An inexperienced pilot's plane would catch fire, a train would derail, a car would overturn, poorly made boots would fall apart, the sick would die, seeds would not sprout, cows would stop giving milk, horses would be ruined. But in politics, this pretense was accepted and put into practice. It is nothing when a person is asked about the welfare of the state, and he responds about the benefits to his pocket and the advantages of his class. He was entrusted to judge about justice, and he started organizing power centers that are good only for exerting pressure on the rest of the people, professional unions, behind-the-scenes conspiracies, totalitarian parties, Vichy, and so on. He was entrusted to safeguard creative freedom, and he chose to sell it to dictators, whether left or right, for bread and entertainment. He was asked about justice, and he proclaimed equality, i.e., the greatest injustice and violence. He was entrusted with questions of honor, conscience, and faith, and he proclaimed the right to dishonor, freedom from conscience, and persecution of believers. Will anyone dare to say that we are exaggerating? No one, of course, because if such a person were found, he would be denounced as an agent and propagandist without a second thought. It's high time to say and affirm totalitarian rule is not a random phenomenon. It was born out of the qualitative decline and spiritual degeneration of democracy. Belief in quantity has diminished quality. Hypocritical pretense regarding the power of judgment and decision-making has given power into the hands of political scum, and political scum, as always, followed demagogues and circulations, sold freedom and rights to them, leading to the crisis of our days. When I speak of scum, I do not connect this concept with hard labor, poverty, or non-native status, but with the baseness of the soul. This baseness of the soul can be found in all social strata, especially in our time, when educated and semi-educated scum has emerged, and nobility of the soul often lives and manifests itself in the poor, exhausted from hard labor. Scum includes people of evil and depraved will, people without honor and conscience, people with dead moral and social sense, people without principles in their greed, people of corrupt professions. You cannot reason this way, they will say to us. Depriving the right to vote can only be based on reliable formal signs, not on discernment of the heart, and we have not found legal grounds to distinguish scum from non-scum. I reply to the opponents, you resemble a person who would say, since I cannot distinguish a plague-infested rat from a healthy one, I propose to grant freedom of movement to all rats as such. Or else, I do not know reliable formal signs of the diphtheria bacterium, so I reject any disinfection. And my son, suffering from diphtheria, I do not treat. I fear to upset not only the diphtheria bacillus, but also some innocent bacterium. Let us proclaim the freedom and equality of all bacteria. So, let people of depraved will flourish. And they will say to us again, you speak of state and political blindness, but how to recognize it? You acknowledge others as blind, and these others acknowledge you and me as blind. Where is the reliable and formal sign? I reply to the opponents. Since we do not yet know who is blind and who can see in politics, we should not investigate this question. Acknowledge everyone as sighted and surrender to the whims of fate. Somehow everything will be sorted out. After all, it's like suggesting not to delve into the question of physical vision, as we won't learn anything anyway, So let's instead put blind people in charge of trains, airplanes, cars, entrust them with the art of painting and the business of artillery. So, let political blind people lead the state. The historical moment has come when people will either renounce such reasoning or definitively embark on the path of the destruction of civilization and culture. The right to vote gives participation in state power, and state power has now lost its boundaries, forgotten its limits, and developed methods of ruling, enslaving, and suppressing individuality that even the Catholic Inquisition did not know. State power has acquired such technical, chemical, and psychological psychiatric skills that make it spiritually dangerous and an infinitely responsible force. The totalitarian state, armed with radio waves, aviation, atomic bombs, gas chambers, subcutaneous injections of poisons, and hypnotic suggestion, has become a terrifying and deadly superpower. These terrifying means should not be entrusted to irresponsible adventurers, to the hands of political power seekers, to the hands of imperialistically turbulent nations. Today, everyone thinks and talks about the Third Atomic War, but such a war may not happen, precisely because everyone foresees it and fears it. However, further political development may take a completely different, even more frightening path. Let's identify three main trends in contemporary politics. Development towards conspiracies and coups. South America has been a practical breeding ground for this method of coming to power for 150 years. 34 years ago, communists took control of this practice. Since then, they have developed an entire practical doctrine, outlined it in resolutions of the Comintern Executive Committee, and have since applied it worldwide. The technique of conspiracy and coup is now more developed than ever, with a focus always on the worst elements of the country: adventurers, failures, ambitious individuals, power seekers, envious, sellouts, traitors, perverts, and sadists. Underground schools have long been operating, systematically teaching these dark arts to such gloomy individuals. Trade unions, from the very beginning, contemplating not the state, but class interests, and pursuing a policy of quantity, pressure, and power, have gradually learned to resort to political strikes. Rail workers realized they could halt all transportation in the country. A conspiracy of electrical workers could stop the flow of electricity and plunge the country into darkness. A conspiracy of coal miners could disrupt all coal supplies and heating. A strike by bank employees could halt normal trade and financial transactions, and so on. The psychology of conspiracy has taken hold of workers' and employees' unions, spilling over into military circles, if not directly into the army. Recall the German steel helmet. Remember that Italian fascism arose from comrade cells, fasci di combattimento. Think about the alliance of veterans in the United States. In South America, conspiracies often flare up in the military. The principle of democratic majority is opposed by a new principle: the conspiracy of an initiative minority. These minorities gradually learn the techniques of conspiracy and coup from the communists and begin to understand that the desire for power, the energy of pressure, the threat of strikes, and other intimidation tactics may outweigh the calculated majority of passive votes. This is opposed on the side of democratic governments by a blind faith in the supposed loyalty of citizens, in quantity and counting, as well as a belief in almost unlimited freedom of speech, press, organization, agitation, party, and professional propaganda. In other words, the cult of acracy, i.e., semi-power and powerlessness. The modern state possesses potentially terrifying power, but exercises currently weak or empty authority. Into this politically weak or vacant space, the wedge of a monstrous conspiracy can penetrate. A union of atomic bomb industry unions will join forces with the aviation union. Who can prevent this? And establish a tyranny of atomic fear and unrestrained corruption. For the terrifying power that communists have effectively deployed in the states they have captured is not guarded in weak authority countries. Numerous examples of atomic betrayals, defections, or disappearances have unequivocally revealed this. We are unlikely to be mistaken if we say that communists have long taken note of this weak, empty space and are working in that direction. We counterpose to this for Russia the thesis, power must be in the hands of the qualitative and strong. A qualitative selection is necessary. The right to vote should belong to loyal citizens, not traitors, not scum, and not the blind. The participation of the people in state building should be expressed in the selection of the best. What is needed is not quantitative but qualitative people's rule.